All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you, everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Also, want to shout out today's sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just minutes down the street from Highmark Stadium. Some of the best wings, eats, drinks, vibes you're going to get anywhere in Western New York. If you haven't been there yet, make sure you go check out Sunny Reds. All right, we are on the video side live here on a late, very late Monday night, talking Buffalo after dark. It's a little bit past 10 p.m. right now. Couple things that we'll jump into today's episode. Number one, I was originally supposed to have Chad DeDominicis with me. However, Chad, if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, if you're a hockey guy, you know Chad. Chad is one of the best hockey guys out there, and he could hold his own with football. And when I talked to him about being on the show tonight, he was down, thinking that we were going to be having a show talking some football and a lot of Sabres. Once I told Chad, I said, I don't give a shit about the Sabres, especially not tonight. We're talking all football, NFL, reacting to free agency. Chad and I talked and said, you know what? We'll reschedule for another time. Then my guy from, Sunday Night Live shows, Joe from Queens, I approached him, but Joe decided that a Seth Rollins versus CM Punk steel cage match on Raw on Netflix took precedent over doing this show. So no Joe from Queens either. I am solo. I'm going to do my best to monitor some of the comments on the video side. But unlike when I have Joe or someone else live, I have plenty of opportunity usually when they're talking to kind of peep through the comments and cue some up. I don't know how effective I'll be able to do that for you tonight, but I'll try to get to some certainly at the end of the show, if nothing else. And this won't be a particularly long show. I got up probably like a lot of you. Well, actually, probably not that early. 5 a.m. I woke up at 5 a.m. like it was Christmas morning. Literally, I couldn't sleep. I was so anxious and ready for free agency. I quite literally got up at 5 a.m. Christmas time, right? But for me, for a lot of you probably listening to the show, Christmas was like, meh, it was all right. It was all right. So, what we're going to do today, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about new Buffalo Bills wide receiver Josh Palmer. We'll spend a few talking about defensive lineman Michael Hoecht that was signed from the Rams. We're going to hit on Mac Hollins leaving the Bills. And a spoiler alert on this one, ain't his fault. It's not that he didn't want to return to Buffalo. The money was not close, and I'm not very happy about that either. So I'm going to have some thoughts on that. We'll hit on a few things what I like about what the Buffalo Bills are doing right now. We'll talk about a few things that I do not like when it comes to the Buffalo Bills right now. A couple quick thoughts on some of the big moves around the league. Day one of free agency, which, by the way, again, 10 p.m. here tonight. It kind of feels like free agency, for the most part, is already over because almost every big name out there has signed with somebody by now. We'll run down what might be left here in free agency, left for the Buffalo Bills, and what I expect them to do going forward. So that'll be the format for today. Again, I'll try to get to some comments if you're watching us on the video side, which if you are, if you're on Twitter and you can't comment, you might want to jump to the Talking Buffalo YouTube channel and go there because you're able to comment there. So anyway, that's what we're going to do for today. I just want to get rolling here. The big news for the Bills, they did sign a wide receiver, Josh Palmer. If you watched the show yesterday, Joe from Queens and I were talking, and Joe asked me two guys to sign that I would not, that would prevent me from being freaked out because I'm a knee-jerk reactor, and Joe completely expects me, and it still might happen, that I freak out over this Buffalo Bills offseason within the first couple of days because they don't do enough. Anyway, I said on yesterday's show, Josh Palmer was my guy at wide receiver. I thought he'd be a great signing, a great fit, and the Bills did sign him. 3 years, reportedly $36 million. And we're doing this again in real time here, and I'm sure most of you know this, but don't look too much into what the initial contract says. What you're seeing here on Monday, like for an example, 3 years, 36 million, or 3 years up to 36 million, anything like that. Usually when the details actually emerge, it doesn't end up being that much. A lot of these contracts that you first see popping up on Twitter when it felt like working today, by the way, or Blue Sky, wherever you get your news from, you see these contracts, and a lot of them are just window dressing. They don't look anything like the contract ultimately ends up being. But the big things to know about Josh Palmer is this: he is an ex receiver. This is a type of receiver that this team lacked last year badly. So I feel it's a need position for sure. A need specific position at wide receiver. Okay. Josh Palmer is a really good man coverage beater. Again, something that the Bills were not good at whatsoever last year. He's still young, 25 years old. He'll be turning 26 in September when the season is starting. By the way, bonus fun fact, he's from Canada, if you care about that kind of thing, as was Michael Hoecht. So both Bills free agent signings, as of this recording anyway, are from nearby Canada. And by the way, I'm usually staring right into the camera, but I'll let you know because I am by myself here on this show. I'm also keeping an eye on TweetDeck because it is late, but things still potentially could happen. Reminds me, going back to 2020, I had Greg Thompson from Cover One on the show, and quite literally in the middle of our broadcast, the Bills ended up trading for Stephon Diggs. So I'm just saying, you never know. I'm trying to keep an eye for that as well. Anyway, I want to offer this insight above all else because I think there's a lot of people out there right now that they heard the news about Josh Palmer. They go, they look at his stats, and it's just like, about this because he isn't, or he certainly to this point anyway, has not been a star player. I get that. There's a lot of, whatever. It's a whatever signing. It's just another guy. I understand that that's the reception from a lot of Bills fans. I want to say this. Some people, and if you're a Bills fan, you should know this. Some people just don't understand the importance of role players on a football team, the importance of solid contributing players on a football team as opposed to quote unquote stars. Okay. It's been the guys. You go back to last year's Buffalo Bills season. Obviously, Josh Allen winning MVP is the best player in the league. Of course, he was the primary reason, and there's others as well. But hey, I'll tell you right now, a very big part of the reason that the Buffalo Bills made it to the AFC Championship, a big part of why they were so good during the regular season, why they got the number 2 seed and why they got home field in the divisional round against the Baltimore Ravens is because of their non-star players, guys like Ty Johnson and guys like Mac Hollins, Alec Anderson, Dorian Williams, Cam Lewis, etc., just to name a few. These are the type of players that aren't stars, but they played big roles in the Buffalo Bills' success last year. But like none of them on their own individually, you would consider a great player per se. So besides having the MVP of the league, which obviously is awesome, this is a team that was great because of role players, how they performed, how they contributed as needed and fits on this football team. So keep that in mind when you think about a player, like for an example, Josh Palmer. All right. I don't think the money is outrageous at all. I mean, look, the salary cap is going up, man. Don't look at, 3 years and 36 or whatever, 3 and 24 for other guys, whatever it may be. Don't compare, and we've been talking about this more and more on the show lately. Don't compare what that player is getting to the same contract that was signed 2-3 years ago because the cap has went up so much. 3 for 36 right now is not the same as 3 for 36 back in, say, 2022 or even 2023 at this point. It's about the percentage of the cap that player takes up at signing. This was not, I'm not going to call it a steal. It wasn't a steal, but this wasn't like an outrageous contract by any means. Tutu Atwell, got $10 million for 1 year to re-sign with the Rams a couple days ago. And then earlier on Monday, Diami Brown got a $10 million 1-year deal. I think Josh Palmer is at least a little bit better than both those guys. So contractually, I feel like this fits where he should have gotten paid. Stats, though, again, if you just look at the box score, if you go to ESPN.com and say, all right, the Bills signed Josh Palmer, I really don't know much about him. Let's go to ESPN.com. Let's check his stats for the season. You're going to be like, huh? 39 catches on 65 targets, 584 yards, and just 1 touchdown. Over the course of his career, 4 years now. Statistically, nothing special. 182 catches, 2,287 yards, and 10 touchdowns again in 4 years. But it's also worth noting that even if you're just talking general stats here, he was kind of buried at least his first 3 years on the depth chart. They had Keenan Allen. They had Mike Williams early on in his career. And it's been a revolving door when it comes to offensive coordinator with the Chargers. They've had 3 and 4 years. I'm not making up excuses, but those are facts. And sometimes it's about opportunity. I mean, take it now, former Buffalo Bill, and we'll get to that shortly here. Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins, 2 years ago, he played with Atlanta. He only had 18 catches in 13 games, 251 yards. Complete non-factor in the Atlanta offense. He goes to Buffalo, gets a bigger opportunity. And what do you know? 31 catches, 378 yards, a team leading 5 touchdown receptions with the Bills this past year. Played a very big role during the regular season and the playoffs. So, again, stats can often be misleading. And when it comes to Josh Palmer, it's his metrics that make him an incredibly intriguing and interesting ad. Per Fantasy Points data, a very respected metrics website, Palmer had the 8th best in the entire NFL at separation score ranks when playing against man coverage. And again, this is something that the Bills struggled mightily last year at getting separation when defenses ran man coverage. They didn't have any man beaters. Palmer was 8th best in the whole NFL. For reference, Keon Coleman was 54th. Mac Hollins was just 71st. Khalil Shakir, as great as he was against man coverage and separation, he was just 82nd. And Dalton Kincaid, first-round pick from a few years ago, just 86th. So getting open against man coverage was a big, big problem for the Bills last year. And this is what Josh Palmer has really been great at. Again, 8th best in the NFL. And you throw the ball to him, it's for a lot of yards. He was 3rd in the NFL in air yards per target last season. Only 2 receivers in the NFL had more air yards per target than Josh Palmer. One of them was Alec Pierce from the Colts, and then the other one was Calvin Ridley, was with Jacksonville. That's it. And a person who I have a great amount of respect for, and I'm sure a lot of you too, if you're Bills fans, you listen to other shows, I'm sure, Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. I think the world of Joe, and I value his opinions a lot. And he's been talking up Josh Palmer for quite a while and really sold me on him weeks ago. And he talked about his EPA per target last year. It was tied. He had the same EPA per target last year as Zay Flowers, a Pro Bowl 1,000-yard receiver for the Ravens, and Brian Thomas Jr., who was an absolute stud as a rookie in Jacksonville. And his EPA target percentage was right there with those guys. I also saw a quote that I want to share from Carl Jones at WIBB TV Channel 4. I thought this was really spot on. He says, and this was a tweet, think of wide receiver rooms like a basketball lineup. You should strive for varying body types and skill sets. The Bills have their big, which is Keon Coleman. They got their 2 guards, which is Shakir and Samuel. They desperately needed a wing who could do a little bit of everything. The hope is that Josh Palmer can be that guy. So again, to conclude here, I'd say don't think of him as a guy who's going to come to Buffalo and your expectation he's going to catch 65 to 70 balls for 900 plus yards and 8 touchdowns. I think you might be setting yourself up for disappointment with that. Forget about wide receiver one. All right. The Bills don't have one. Maybe Keon Coleman ultimately emerges as one, but the Bills don't have a true, legit alpha wide receiver one, not at this time. And based on what's on the market right now, barring a big trade, I don't think the Bills, they didn't have one last year. I don't think they're going to have one this year either. So Josh Palmer's not going to come here and he's not going to be that guy. But he is a guy that fills a role and he feels a big need for this team. And I think that with opportunity, which he will get, I think he should do it very, very well. I want to hit on the other guy too, who the Bills signed. Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you folks here, man. If you watch the show, you listen to the show, you know me. I react to things. I have opinions on things. I know football. I know a lot of players, but I'm not a film guy. I don't know the league inside out. I don't know, depth players from every team in the NFL, like some of the other Bills, great content creators out there. In terms of Michael Hoecht to the Bills, 3 years, by the way, reported max value of $24 million. And again, a reminder, wait for the details to come out on this contract before any kind of reaction. I don't know a lot about him. I'm relying right now on, and I will over the next coming days, watch a lot of highlights. I will do a lot of reading, whether it's, from Eric Turner and the crew over at Cover One, Joe Marino, Bruce Nolan, lots of content creators, some of the media peoples of their podcasts. I'll read The Athletic. I'll read up and I'll study as much about him as I possibly can. But right now, at this time, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. I don't know shit about him. I don't. Undrafted in 2020. I know he spent his first year on the practice squad with the Rams, the last 3 years on the roster. He's 6'4", like 270. Which, by the way, PFF, get your shit together, because I went to PFF originally and they listed him at 310, and I tweeted that, and people immediately said, well, no, dude, he ain't 310 pounds. It's off by like 40 pounds. So I don't know what the hell PFF was thinking, but 6'4", around 270. Very versatile player. I've learned that already. He's played edge, defensive tackle, even a little bit of linebacker with the Rams. He's a chess piece. He's played plenty in the last 2 years, 57% of the snaps this past year, 85% in 2023. 85% in 2023 is off the table for the Bills. Nobody plays 85% of the snaps. Myles Garrett could have gave to the Bills if Sean McDermott's not playing his ass 85% of the snaps. But that 57%, that kind of sounds in line, that 40 to 60% part of a rotation that Sean McDermott is absolutely obsessed with having. That seems to fit. 68 games, 31 starts, 3 sacks last year, 13 for his career, 13 and a half so far for his career. And again, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I really know anything more than that about him. I don't. And this is real time. I'll learn, like I said, plenty more, just like you guys will in the days and weeks to come. I'll say this, though, and credit where it's due. I am going to give the guys at Cover One specifically some credit here, because a lot of times, especially if you're a content creator, if you're in the media, if you're a fan especially, a lot of times a player you don't think highly of or you don't even know, they'll sign and all of a sudden you're a big fan. Oh, it's a great signing. I love that. I love it. I love it. Don't even know shit about the guy until afterwards. I'll give Cover One a lot of credit here in this case. They were very, very high on him before free agency, because when I went scrambling right after the signing, I saw immediately Eric Turner from Cover One had a great clip highlighting Hoyt and had him as his second overall edge and third overall player on his list of realistic Buffalo Bills free agent targets. So I had to make sure I shout out that was impressive. His partner, the film room at Cover One, Anthony Prohaska, one of my favorites, he had him fourth. So this is a guy, if you pay attention to Cover One and you watch their film studies and stuff like that, or if you read up on their free agent primers, this was the guy we should have known, which I should have read up on that more, because I should have known that this was a pretty quality Buffalo Bills target. So in that regards, maybe it shouldn't even be that surprising. For me, on the surface, again, without knowing too much right now, this kind of feels like a Dewan Smoot type replacement. It could be a great death piece for the Buffalo Bills, and we'll learn more soon. My only initial takeaway right now is, boy, I really hope that this isn't the biggest veteran addition to this defensive line. And I'm not talking about the draft. We all know they're going to do something with the draft. They're going to draft an edge rusher at some point. It might be 30. They might move up. They might move down. It might be their first pick. They got two twos. It could be a fourth rounder. It could be anywhere. The Bills are drafting at least one and possibly more guy or defensive edge guys. We'll see. But in terms of veteran additions, right now you're looking at Greg Rizzo. You got AJ Epinesa, who I'm not very high on, and you all know that. And now you got Michael Hoecht. Javon Sullivan going into year 2. Interesting, intriguing prospect. Saw some flashes from him last year. Saw a little bit of Vaughn Miller at times with him. But a 5th-round guy from a year ago, are you going to bank on him taking a major step? I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with him being the 4th best edge rusher on this team right now. At least not right now. So my only gripe with Hoyt is that I really hope that he's not like their quote unquote big splash. Anyway, those are the 2 additions. I'm going to take on the video side, literally a 5-second break, come back. I'm stunned, folks, absolutely stunned that the Bills did not re-sign Matt Hollins, and then he ends up going to New England. So let's take a real quick break, come back on the other side. We'll discuss that and plenty of other stuff that's been going on in a wild opening day of free agency. All right, I am back here recapping night 1, day 1, Buffalo Bills free agency on the video side. We are live, and I'm going to let you know, too, now, if you're watching the show, we're going to be live every day for the rest of this week. Going to be live again around 10 p.m. I want to do them late on Monday and Tuesday because I expect a lot of signings, and things could still happen even this late at night, but not as likely. So tonight and tomorrow being Tuesday night, be live at 10 o'clock. Wednesday night, I'll be live at 9 o'clock with Matt Warren from SB Nation. And then Thursday night, I'll be live at 9 o'clock with Chris Ostrander. And every day this week, we're just going to break down all the Bills and big NFL news. And there's going to be plenty going on all week long. So that's the plan here on Talking Buffalo for the week. All right, back to what I considered a stunner and something that I'm really not happy about, if I'm honest with you. Matt Hollins goes to the New England Patriots. Of all the things I saw today, big signings, little signings, things would pop up on TweetDeck because, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. The good old days of NFL free agency are gone. You would see a tweet where player X is flying to Miami or Carolina or wherever for a visit. And you're like, don't let them leave the building. Are they going to leave the building? Are they going to sign before they leave? Who's the other competition? This guy's got to make a decision. It felt like a process. There's no more process. One time, nothing's going on Twitter, and you hit refresh, and bam, big ass name. Name somebody. A big player they signed. You didn't see it coming. It kind of comes out of nowhere with whatever team. So there's not a lot of build-up, suspense, and drama. But anyway, you're seeing a lot of big deals going on today. I'm like, oh, wow. But when it came out, hit refresh or whatever at some point on my TweetDeck that Matt Hollins signs a 2-year contract with the New England Patriots, I was legitimately stunned and completely taken back. 2 years, reported $8.4 million, maxed out at 10.4. So going by those numbers, it looks like about 4.2 million per year, and you can maybe make up to 5.2 million per year with some incentives. I will tell you this. I've heard from a very trustworthy person that the Bills' offer to Matt Hollins was not even close to this. Like, it was $1 million, more than $1 million. It was like about $1.5 million per season less than what Matt Hollins ended up signing for with the Patriots. So I want to be real clear right now. I got no ill will on Matt Hollins whatsoever. He didn't turn his back on Buffalo. He didn't turn his back on Bills Mafia. and all the fans that really embraced him and loved him. This was a business decision that I don't blame him for. If the money was close and he just decided he wanted to go to New England, then I'd be like, see you later. But that's not how it went down. Everything I understand is that the Bills offer to Mac was considerably less. So, you got to make a living. And he chose to go to New England. And I don't like it. And in an era where it seems like everyone's, overpaid, it just feels like anyway. I feel like Mac Hollins, based on what he did with the Bills last year, what he brought to the team, both on the stat sheet and outside of the box score, I feel like Mac Hollins was, especially again with the salary cap going up and continuing to go up, I thought it was a no-brainer that Mac Hollins was worth $4 to $5 million per year for this football team. Last year, Mac Hollins had 31 catches, 378 yards. He led the team with 5 touchdown receptions. He played 66% of the snaps for the Bills last year. Beyond the receiving stats, he was a solid blocker, some really good special team skills. I mean, he had the hit of the year last year on special teams, and just a great energy boost, man. A great guy to have, I'm sure, in that locker room. You saw it on the sidelines. He was constantly bringing energy. The players, it rubbed off on them. You could see the vibes. You don't got to be an insider. You don't got to be a teammate. You could be a fan just watching on TV or a fan at the stadium. You could see the energy, the pop that Mac Hollins brings or brought last year. So you couple that with the numbers, which were pretty damn good, which, by the way, he also showed out in the AFC Championship game, too. He had 3 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. He was the best wide receiver on the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm absolutely flabbergasted right now about how this played out. This is a dependable, solid, let's just say wide receiver 4. Hell, you can even call him wide receiver 5, whatever you feel more comfortable saying, who could also play special teams and very well liked. To me, that's worth $4 to $5 million a year, without a doubt. And I'm not trying to, again, I'm a no knee-jerk reactor. I know that shit, but maybe I'm not trying to overreact here because maybe something's coming we don't know about, but it just feels to me like they wanted to stop paying wide receiver after Palmer. And if they add to this team, and they probably will, it's probably going to be a rookie, or it's going to be a very cheap vet that they can get for $1.5 million to maybe $2 million, something like that. But again, I don't like it. I don't like this move. Not at all. Not even a little bit. I think this was a mistake, unless something big is coming. I mean, again, we just talked about the Bills don't have a wide receiver 1. Are they looking to make a trade? Ain't no wide receiver 1s or even 2 legit 2s really at this point. Many of them, if at all, on the market. I know we've heard, and this is kind of like content driven, fan driven, like a Chris Olave trade with the Saints or something like that. That happens, and I will apologize for being anti Mac Hollins to New England. But otherwise, right now, you got Keon, you got Shakir, you got Samuel, you got Palmer. Those are your top 4 guys. And my knee-jerk reaction in the moment is the Bills are putting a lot of confidence right now in Keon Coleman to take that next step. Not necessarily because Mac Hollins is gone. I still would feel that way. But Mac Hollins is gone, and they signed a guy around the same kind of salary-ish that they did with Curtis Samuel last year, which tells me I don't think they're going to spend big anymore on wide receiver. So is Keon Coleman going to emerge as that alpha? It seems like they're putting a lot of confidence in him. And based on what I heard from Brandon Beane at the end of the year, I'm not quite sure that I share that sentiment. Regardless, until I see otherwise, to me, that was a shitty move by Brandon Beane, and I don't like it at all. I'll tell you what I do like about what the Bills are doing to this point, and it's got really very little to do with today. But let's not have it lost on ourselves, folks, that the days before free agency, Brandon Beane just absolutely proactive with maintaining his core. The core guys that he has re-signed before free agency even started has been phenomenal. And that's got to matter, especially when you go around and you see in these contracts that people are getting paid on Monday here in day one of free agency, between what teams are paying to get those type of players, in a lot of cases, an overpay, plus GMs of that team sick that they're losing players that they don't want to lose. Now, I know the Eagles are still going to be great and they're going to find ways, but I don't care how great Howie Roseman is. You think he wanted to sit there and lose Josh Sweat and Milton Williams in the same day? Probably not. I'm going to guess no. But Brandon Beane does such a good job at being proactive with his key players and getting them locked up that rarely ever happens. Brandon Beane might not be to our liking, being aggressive right now and going to get somebody that really matters. But what Brandon Beane's also not doing is sitting, in his office shitting himself because he's worried that these key core players are signing with other teams because the Bills couldn't re-sign them. That's what I'm getting at right now. Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, Greg Rizzo. All three of them would have been free agents after this year, but they're not going to be because he inked all three to 4-year extensions. I thought, and I've already talked about this, so I won't dig in too much here, but I thought Khalil Shakir was a borderline steal. I don't think Terrell Bernard was a steal by any means, but again, that was fair value. And Greg Rizzo, I'm still a little bit sore at him over his performance at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game. I still feel like he needs to be a little more consistent. I'm not sold that he's going to be much more than what we've seen through these first 4 years of his career. But that said, he's far and away their best edge defender. It wasn't an unreasonable contract. I thought he could be getting $23 to $25 million in an extension, certainly next year in the open market. And it's a contract that, as these edge guys are signing for money right now, and surely more to come, or trades, that it's going to look more and more like a bargain. So Brandon Beane has done an incredible job of locking these guys up. And I'm obviously not even counting the Josh Allen deal, the most guaranteed money in the NFL history. Brandon Beane is proactive with doing what he does as any team in the entire NFL. And that's awesome. So while with free agency, we're seeing these names flying off the board with crazy prices and, and fan bases losing their shit over, key players being gone. Brandon Beane ain't sweating that. He's just not sweating that shit, man. I'd say, going back over these last, 5 years or so now, probably the only Bills player, especially one that was drafted and developed by the Buffalo Bills, I'd say Tremaine Edmonds is the only player during the Brandon Beane era that really you didn't want to lose in free agency. Like, you don't want to lose him, but you can't afford to pay him. Like, losing him felt like it hurt at the time, especially considering that his last year in Buffalo was far and away his best year. He was really coming into his own his last year in Buffalo. So losing him sucked at that time in free agency. That's the only one, though. And by the way, it didn't last very long either, because Terrell Bernard became the starter the very next season. He broke out literally that next year. So I like how Brandon Beane is being really proactive with extensions. If it comes at the expense of not being as aggressive in free agency, that sucks a little bit. But you know what? So be it. I think he's doing a great job of keeping this core. You're going in the next year right now, and we're still, 12 months away from free agency 2026. And you got Connor McGovern and Christian Benford, who I do think something will get done. I think that's a little more complicated because of the position he plays. And James Cook. Pretty much you're a full year out, and there's only 3 guys that are really meaningful that you were even concerned about next year. And now a player like Cook or Benford, if need be, and you really want to keep them around, you do have that franchise tag when it comes to them as a potential option. So I love what he's doing in that regards. And I hate to admit it, but I kind of like that the Bills aren't being, although it sucks right now, I don't like it right now, but the Bills aren't being too impulsive throwing money around with free agency right now. A lot of these defensive line guys and these corners we've been seeing today are getting 18 to $25 million per year. And it feels good in the moment. But as we see time and time again, year after year, with so many of these teams that spend big and win the off season, I think of Rex Ryan every time I ever say that. But it just doesn't end up being good business, right? So it's not fun. It's not sexy. But Brandon Beane right now is looking at useful players. That's what he's looking at right now. Again, Josh Palmer is a very useful player that fits in need. Michael Hoecht feels, and I'll learn more about him, like a very useful player that fills in need, a chess piece. He might allow Bobby Babbage to be more creative in some of his pass rushing schemes and other things that they do on defense. Is he a huge upgrade over Casey Toohill? I don't know. Is he going to be better than Von Miller, who they cut on Sunday? I can't say that for sure. Is Josh Palmer going to be worlds better than Matt Hollins? Because right now, essentially, that's what's been swapped out. I doubt it because I thought Matt Hollins was really good last year. But regardless of how you look at it, these are useful players, valuable free agents, and they're still, he's got his eyes open. There could be a trade out there or a value free agent signing or two that maybe he pulls the trigger on because free agency's almost over, but it's not quite over. There are still definitely some guys out there, that could help this football team. So that's what I like. He's not being too impulsive, and he's really handled in-house business incredibly well. What I don't like, and again, it's too early to really not like anything. We're literally just here on night one of free agency. Nobody likes to hit a panic button faster than me, but even I'm not doing that right now. But I'll say this. I need the Buffalo Bills to have a better roster than they do right now before the draft. Not just, hey, we signed 2 guys, we'll go get a special teams guy, a third running back or something like that and see it at the draft. That's not what I'm saying. They need to be better before the draft than they are right now. And partially that's because, honestly, Brandon Beane's track record with these first and second round picks of the draft making big impact as rookies anyway is not great. And I'm not going to count on it. I'm just not. I know the Bills picked 30. I know they got 2 seconds. And I know everyone in the world say, well, they're going to get a corner, they're going to get an edge, they're going to get a defensive tackle. It's great. Am I going to count on them to be productive, solid, potentially impactful rookies? I don't think I'm ready to count on it. I hope it happens, but I'm not going to bank on that right now. The Bills' defensive line was not good enough when it mattered last year. When it mattered most, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't close either. And it's been that way for years. And they don't seem eagerly aggressive to improve right now either. And that bothers me. Unless you go out right now and who knows, maybe by the time you hear this, he's already signed somewhere. But Jonathan Allen is still out there right now. Defensive tackle, he would be an instant, huge upgrade. Unless you go sign him or you find a way to trade for Trey Hendrickson, which I do not think is going to happen. I just can't see the Bengals. If they trade him at all, I cannot see it being to the Buffalo Bills. Never say never. I just don't see it. But there isn't a lot out there that we know of anyway that could be considered significant upgrades at this point. I'm not looking to see AJ Epinesa start. To me, he is not a defensive end number 2 alongside Groot. He shouldn't be anyway. I'm not looking to see AJ Epinesa as a starter and have a big role in this defense and a key part of their success. I don't think that's a smart idea. All right. I'm also not looking to see Daquan Jones start anymore and be counted on to not just be an effective starter, but as a one-tech defensive tackle, make the guys around him better. Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau next to him. We've seen it. And has it happened? It's not going to happen at this point. Daquan Jones is 34 years old. And by the way, I love Daquan Jones. I still think the injury that happened in the first month of the season in 2023 had a horrible impact on him ever since. He was an absolute stud the first month of that season. He tore that pec, has not been the same since. He was very pedestrian last year. I know some film people will disagree. I'll die on that hill. He was just all right. And I think the Bills could do a hell of a lot better than DaQuan Jones at this point as a starter. You want to keep him on the team because you're not really gaining too much by cutting him. In fact, you're gaining nothing if you cut him before June 1st. You want to keep him on the team, let him be a depth player, let him be this year's Austin Johnson or Jordan Phillips or whoever. Cool. But you got to get an upgrade there. You got to be better than DaQuan Jones. You got to be better than AJ Epinesa. And I don't see it happening through the draft. So you better get better before the draft, as far as I'm concerned. I'm also not loving what I'm seeing at cornerback right now. Like, I don't love Rasul Douglas, but based on what I've seen on Monday, I think at this point I'd gladly take him back. You certainly don't want to downgrade from a Rasul Douglas who was declining last year. You don't want to downgrade more from that. I'm sure as hell not going to count on Kyrie Elam. And I think even in the first round, taking a rookie at 30 and having him start as a rookie is very, very risky. Trying to keep my eyes, like I said, on any potential breaking news while I'm talking to y'all. So yeah, there's that. I'll be very disappointed if the Buffalo Bills don't look to at least somewhat upgrade the secondary as well. And that's especially true if they don't significantly upgrade the defensive line. Like, if you just can't get the guy, you can't get the horses, and you're going to rely on AJ Epinesa and Javon Sullivan and Michael Hoecht to be, and maybe a rookie to be, the meat and potatoes of your rotation because you can't do anything better. Okay, well, then go give me a much better cornerback than what they have right now. Or go get me a strong safety that we're not expecting right now. The secondary was not so great last year. The safety play was average. Christian Benford was a beast. Rasul Douglas, you saw his play decline a little bit. They surely can stand to use at least somewhat of an upgrade in the secondary. So if you're not going to improve the defensive line, you better at least improve the secondary. And lastly, as of this recording anyway, I don't love that Ty Johnson's not back. I don't know what's going on with him. I have not heard a single word peep about Ty Johnson all of Monday. And we are what now? We're at 10:42 p.m. on Monday night, and I've heard nothing about Ty Johnson. I think he's a very valuable player on this football team. Josh Allen is completely comfortable with him. He has called him the best third down back in the NFL. He serves a role on this team very well. Josh loves him. I think it would be a mistake, especially if they're not re-signing Matt Hollins. I think it would be a big mistake to also not re-sign Ty Johnson. So I'm a little bit concerned. I don't like the fact that I haven't heard anything about them. And I've already told you about my dislike of not keeping Matt Hollins. But again, we're one day into free agency, and I am keeping that in mind. Some of the bigger signings around the league, and we're going to really deep dive into any of these today because we're already late into the show. Throughout the week, we'll talk about it more and more. But like I said, most of these big wide receiver names gone. Chris Godwin re-signed with the Bucks 3 years. De'Ami Brown goes to the Jags, 1 for 10. That makes me feel better, like I said, about the Josh Palmer deal. Edge, the big one, I really wanted Josh Sweat. He ended up going to Arizona 4 years, $76.4 million. I'm not even sure what the guarantee is. His former coach is out at Arizona. That played a factor. I wonder if the Bills were ever really in on Josh Sweat because, man, oh, man, I thought of a Greg Rizzo, Josh Sweat tandem at edge would have been really, really cool. But that was not meant to be. Khalil Mack didn't even make it to free agency. He was a subject of a lot of potential going to Buffalo to finish his career talk. That did not materialize at all. Didn't even make it to free agency. He re-signed with the Chargers 1 year, $18 million. $18 million is more than I would have wanted to pay. Fully guaranteed, too, by the way. Hassan Reddick was the other edge. Once, Josh Sweat was kind of like a pipe dream. I felt like Hassan Reddick was a little more realistic, but he was literally the first reported unrestricted free agent to go somewhere else. He went to Tampa 1 year, $14 million, 12 guaranteed. Tell you what, on a 1 year deal, and you can make a void year in there, I would have taken that chance. A former UB boy, Malcolm Coots, goes back to the Raiders, got 1 for 12. Chase Young to the Saints. I didn't like, listen, I'm glad Chase Young, the Bills, I would not have been happy if the Bills signed Chase Young, especially if they're in his contract numbers. 3 years, $51 million, up to $57. That shit is crazy. He is second overall pick of the draft, and he was good his rookie year. And he's been very, very, very pedestrian ever since. So I'm really glad that he didn't. But anyway, most of these edge guys already off the market. Defensive tackle, if you were looking for an upgrade there, that may even be more demoralizing because there's even less of them that are even out there right now. Milton Williams goes to the New England Patriots. More on them in a minute. 4 years, 104 million. BJ Hill's a guy I talked about a lot on this show. I would have liked him. He goes back to Cincy. Javon Kinlaw went to Washington. Poona Ford, who Sean McDermott completely fucked up and literally dropped the ball on. I'll never understand how Poona Ford couldn't even get on the field in Buffalo. He dominated with the Chargers last year, and he gets a 3-year, $30 million deal to go to the Rams. What a mistake that was with Sean McDermott. I would love to be a fly on that wall and try to figure out what the hell happened with Poona Ford here in Buffalo. But anyway, Grady Jarrett got cut by Atlanta. That lasted like an hour because he ended up going to Chicago. DJ Jones back to Denver. Bobby Jones III, a guy who again, people who I respect, we're talking very highly of. He went to Carolina. Deshaun Warden from Tershawn Warden, I'm sorry, from Kansas City. He also went to Carolina. So they redid their defensive tackles there. Tier Tart went back to the Chargers for a year. So again, that defensive tackle market pretty much dried up. Then I was like, all right, well, maybe the Bills will surprise you and throw some money in a corner. You got Benford, go get another lockdown corner. Let's have 2 lockdown corners. Not meant to be, at least not with these guys that were signed. DJ Reed, he goes to the Lions. Javarius Ward went to the Colts. Carlton Davis to the Patriots. Byron Murphy back to the Vikings. Paulson Adebo is a guy I liked. It was a guy I would have loved the Bills to get their hands on. He went to the Giants, 3 years, $30 million. Nate Hobbs goes to Green Bay. Darius Slay Jr., I thought maybe he could be a 1-year bridge while you draft and develop somebody. Ended up going to Pittsburgh. Dante Johnson to the Chargers. In terms of quarterbacks, which means nothing to the Bills, but Sam Darnold to Seattle, I don't get that. Good for him to get the bag, though. 3 years, like about $100 million, 55 guaranteed. I hope he lives to see those 3 years because he's going to get killed in Seattle behind that offensive line. And 2 of their wide receivers gone. Didn't make any sense to me. Justin Fields goes to the New York Jets, 2 years. $40 million, 30 of that guaranteed. Zach Wilson to the Miami Dolphins. LOL, you better hope 2 don't get hurt again. The only running back of significance, Najee Harris, goes to the Chargers. I think it's a good fit. 1 year, $9.5 million. I thought, on paper, and again, we do this every year, on paper, the Patriots improved a lot on paper. They added Milton Williams, who was the prize defensive tackle free agency. They added Harold Landry on Sunday. They added Carlton Davis, one of the top corners. That's 3 pretty good damn starters right there. Actually 4, because they have also got the linebacker, Robert Spillane. So they really revamped their defense in 1 day. Offensively, we'll see. They added an old, aging tackle in Morgan Moses, but he'll help. He'll help short term anyway. And then, of course, Matt Hollins. In terms of the best players that are still out there, if you're wondering like who maybe, hopefully by the time you listen to this, some of them are still out there. I'm trying to take a look through in real time here, not seeing anything. Best players that are still around as of this recording. Edge guys, pretty thin now, but there's still some out there. Zadarius Smith, I wouldn't mind him. DeMarcus Lawrence, 33 years old, but I'll tell you what, he could be a good stopgap guy, especially you want to give Javon Solomon another year. You want to draft a guy young, give him a year to develop. DeMarcus Lawrence, you could do a lot worse than I like that guy a lot, actually. Joey Bosa, do you want to roll the dice? Do you? Joey Bosa, as of now anyway, is still out there. And Dante Fowler's another guy who intrigues me. Pretty much mostly slim pickings, though. Not sure you're going to do much better than what Von Miller was last year. At defensive tackle, is pretty much Jonathan Allen or bust, if you're talking the veteran route. Now, look, Calais Campbell is a guy, he can play edge, he can play inside, outside. I would love for the Bills to have him. He can talk about a nice little matchup piece right there. You can do a lot worse than that as well. But to me, if you're not making a trade, and you want to improve that front four significantly in one financial swoop, Jonathan Allen to me is one of the few hopes, if not the only hope there. Cornerbacks, Russell Douglas is still out there. I haven't heard anything about him on Monday. So do the Bills have interest? I don't know. Asante Samuel Jr. is out there. There was some fake news going around. Somebody put out some bullshit, and a couple Buffalo media people actually retweeted and gave it some legs. But as far as I know, Asante Samuel to the Bills, not real. You want an old corner? Jonathan Jones. Maybe you give him a look for a year. Again, drafting somebody. Running backs, if you don't re-sign Ty Johnson, which, God, why would you not re-sign Ty Johnson? Rico Dowdle from Dallas is out there. Gainwell from Philly's out there. Kareem Hunt from Kansas City is out there. So there's at least some options at running back if for whatever reason Ty Johnson wasn't going to work out. In terms of what I expect for the Bills here to wrap up, patience. Patience. I don't know. Brandon Beane ain't making no panic moves. I can tell you that. We might be panicking. I'm not panicking. Are you panicking? No. But anyway, I know Brandon Beane's not. He's not panicking right now. He's got a lot of time to make some moves. Let's not forget, man, time is on the side right now, Brandon Beane. Like, who would have thought last year on night one of free agency that a month or so later, 3.5 weeks later, they would trade Stephon Diggs? So things happen beyond the first 24, 48, 72 hours of free agency. So I expect patience from Brandon Beane, although I'd like to think that he will be, that something will happen on Tuesday. Big players being available via trade, still on the table, maybe. And I mentioned both of them. Trey Hendrickson, who, this has been reported on now, and the Bengals gave him permission to seek a trade. However, the Bengals didn't sign anybody. So if the Bengals are trying to win a championship this year, I don't see them trading Hendrickson anymore. Just pay him. Follow the Bengals anyway. That's what I do. But if they don't, potentially, I guess, technically he's on the table. I mentioned Chris Olave. That's just, and that whole wide receiver one thing, I still don't think the Bills need one, even though it would be fun. But he would be very intriguing. I mentioned Jonathan Allen, Zadarius Smith. Maybe bringing back Von Miller. I don't know. But if you can find a way and you go get a Zadarius Smith and a Jonathan Allen, man, you really found a way to upgrade that defensive line. We'll see. Anyway, I want to thank all you for watching. And I also want to apologize because, like I said, it's impossible if I'm doing this by myself to be able to keep up with the comments. Unfortunately, when I have a guest, it's just a lot easier because I can really lock in. Maybe I'll take a quick scan here before I get out. But like I said at the beginning, I want to let you all know that tomorrow and the rest of the week going to be live. So tomorrow night, 10 p.m., going to recap everything that happens on Tuesday. Wednesday, 9 p.m. with Matt Warren to recap Wednesday, which is actually the first official day of free agency. And then Thursday, 9 p.m. again, Chris Ostrander will join me. So all week long, it's going to be all about the Bills, reaction to everything that's going on, everything and anything around the NFL. I'll publish some of these comments on the actual video in the actual comments themselves. But for everybody who's been watching and following along, and especially commenting, I can't thank you enough. Like I said, I was supposed to have a guest, but kind of fell through, so I had to do this solo. Thank you again. I will be back again tomorrow live, 10 p.m. Talk to you guys then.